Yo, yo, yo. What is good, y'all? It's your boy Potter here. It's been a long time. Been quite a while. The world has changed as we know it. Everyone is stuck at home. Your favorite restaurants are all closed. We got stimulus checks in the mail. And President Trump is telling everyone that they should shoot Lysol into their veins. But while it's easy to fear, don't. This post-corona world is crazy, and the homies are back to carry you through it. On this episode of With the Homies Review, Gaming Edition, we review Final Fantasy VII Remake for the PlayStation 4. I've been playing video games since the early 90s. I started with Super Mario Bros. And Metal Gear Solid on the original Nintendo, and I've never stopped. But there was a special gem that I came across when I first dabbled with the PlayStation, and it was Final Fantasy VII. I don't need to go on explaining what it was about, because if you're watching this video 9 times out of 10, you probably played it. But after playing it 10 plus times myself throughout my childhood and my adult life even, it went out to be one of my favorite games of all time. Ever since the original release, there's been growing speculation about a follow-up, a remake in the series, anything, a continuation, who knows. PlayStation even went as far as releasing tech demos of the game, just on upcoming consoles like on the PS3 you've seen it. Final Fantasy tech demo, everyone went crazy. So when we finally got a release date, you could imagine what the hysteria looked like. This moment has been 23 years in the making. So let's get right into it. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a remake of a JRPG that was originally released on the PlayStation in 1997 and made by Squaresoft, now Square Enix. The main story of the remake takes place in a city called Midgar, an industrialized city built around the headquarters of a mega corporation called Shinra, who has developed ways to harness the lifeblood of the planet and use it to power the city and create large advancements in technology. The city is broken into two parts: the upper part, which holds more well-off families and many of the workers of the Shinra company, while the lower part is the slums, where all the refuse of the city lives, or so Shinra likes to believe. The game centers around an ex-Shinra soldier. There's a tongue twister for you. Ex-Shinra soldier, ex-Shinra soldier, ex-Shinra soldier, named Cloud, who after speaking with his childhood friend decides to partner with a ragtag group of environmental extremists known as Avalanche in order to take out Shinra and save the planet. All the while, a ghost from Cloud's past, a dark and foreboding man named Sephiroth, returns with intentions to find out more information on the Cetra, an ancient civilization of people who had the power to turn lifeblood of the planet into a materia, a system which allows users to develop mystical and magical powers, and to use that information to formulate a plan to take over the world. Without giving away too much information or any more of the plot, I will say there's a lot about the game that I enjoyed, and a lot that I didn't. This is a remake, so a lot of the characters, story pieces, and settings are the same as the original, which is definitely a plus. But in the second half of the game, it begins to deviate from the plot of the original, and that's where things get a little wonky. Gameplay and story are cornerstones of all JRPGs, and with Final Fantasy VII Remake, you're getting a little bit of a mixed bag. The combat varies dramatically from the original, taking a step back from the slow and strategic elements of turn-based combat, and instead going for a more hack-and-slash style reminiscent of Kingdom Hearts. But it does have its own unique flair, like the classic mode, which allows the computer to fight for you while your ATB bar fills, creating a watered-down version of the original combat system. Other than that, its combat system works similarly to the OG, where you can set your equipment and materia to each party member and customize the way that you want them to battle. Summons work a little differently this time around, and instead of showing up for one big power move like in the previous installment, they fight on the battlefield with you and can be controlled until their ATB meter completely drains. upon which they will unleash a massive attack on your opponent, inflicting a hefty dose of damage. The game features a semi-open world where there exist multiple locations that you can travel between, but it's still very linear in comparison to the original. These locations vary in size and depth, and you can fully navigate the areas, which have various stores and places to visit. You can even buy wardrobe upgrades, items, power-ups, weapons, and even ways to just replenish your health. If you've played the original games, then the setting and locations you encounter will be like a wave of nostalgia crashing over you. And some of these areas are even more well thought out and developed than they were in the original. While this game has a lot to offer in terms of depth and engaging gameplay, if you're an adoring fan of the 1997 version, you might be bothered by some of the changes that they introduced. Graphically, this game is stunning. It's a masterpiece of graphical fidelity, imagination, beauty. This game shines brightest during cutscenes, but even just walking around in town will sometimes make you feel like you're in a magical wonderland and just stand and admire the scenery. It's definitely a noteworthy achievement. The characters you remember from the original all return in their new 4K HD selves without all the polygonal bodies and drawn-on faces from the original. The detail and care that went into the crafting of each of these characters, just their looks and facial expressions, is nothing less than mind-blowing. While we never seen them presented in this way, and maybe just Advent children, it feels as though the developers took like these images right out of your memory and projected it onto the big screen for you. If you're a fan of the original's world, characters, and aesthetic, then you'll enjoy the game just for the graphics and design alone. The story shouldn't really matter to you. Now for some quick pros and cons. The graphics are amazing, and the sound and character design are stunning, adding to the overall depth of the game. There are more detailed world-building elements and characters developed that surpass the original. Seeing the outcomes of your actions makes everything more visceral and real. Just walking through Midgar after blowing up a reactor and seeing how it affected the lives of the families and people that lived in the slums, it adds something that didn't exist in the original. And it hits you right in the nostalgia bone. The story, especially in the second half, suffers from some revisionist ideals and takes some turns for the worst, which might leave a sour taste in adoring fans' mouths. The combat system at times is too simple, and all the strategy and depth of the original was removed for the sake of some action and showmanship. Even some boss fights can be won by just spamming your basic attack, while your computer-controlled allies automatically attack the boss. It removes a lot of the depth of the original combat system. And last but not least, the ending. And the fact that it's not a complete game, and we still have to wait for 2 more installments. But that's besides the point. Look, it's been a long time since I played the original. And boy, when I tell you does it feel great to adventure back in the world of Final Fantasy VII, it feels like hanging out with old friends that you haven't seen in a long time. Some of my favorite gaming memories came from playing this very game throughout my childhood. And JRPs just like it. But this day and age, the turn-based style of gaming has kind of faded into obscurity, other than maybe Persona, and has since been replaced in favor of this hack and slash pseudo turn-based style like Kingdom Hearts and some of the even newer Final Fantasies. I've been excited for this project for years and couldn't wait to see the outcome. But after playing it, I'm not too sure anymore. While I enjoy a lot about the game, from the detailed world building, the in-depth character development, and the beautiful 4K remake of Tifa's Seventh Heaven, the Sector 5 slums, Wall Market, and even the Shinra building, the deviation from the original story bothers me way too much. when you change the major story elements of the game in order to suit your own narrative, it no longer becomes a remake. It bastardizes your longtime fan base and their expectations of the project, basically telling them that you're making the game for people who never even played it and only heard about it, while throwing in a couple things here or there just to placate you. The second half of the game felt more like an insult, with the pacing just going out the window. A lot of filler being added in just to justify the $60 price tag for, it not even for a third of the game. They turned a 3-hour section in the original story into a 30-hour experience, which at times is great, but falters way too much. You can take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Maybe I'm salty. Maybe I'm just mad that they changed a piece of my childhood. Or maybe I'm bothered by the weak and poorly propped up plot armor towards the end of the game. Or maybe I'm just upset that you can call something a remake which only really follows the basic premise of the original. Who knows? This has been your homie Potter, and your boys are back. Stay tuned to the YouTube. Stay tuned to the Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you get your podcasts, because your boys are back. We're back in town, all right? So stay tuned for that content we got coming to you. Content. But this has been your boy on another episode of With the Homies Review Gaming Edition. And I'm giving Final Fantasy VII Remake for the PlayStation 4 7 materias out of 10, baby. 7 out of 10. Not too good. Not too bad. But not as good as the original. Peace out.